Hey friends, and welcome back to The Sandwich. I am super pumped about this particular episode because I have three amazing women sitting in my living room. We're surrounded by lights and you guys can see it on the video. And we're super excited to just kind of like pause and talk about something that's important to all of us. We're going to talk about friendships. But before I get into it, I'm going to introduce all of these amazing women. So let's do it. All right, I'm staring into Joanna's eyes.
Hi, I'm staring into your eyes. Hi there, Amanda.
That's it. I have Joanna from Nesting Story, who is a familiar face around here, especially if you follow these awesome Canadian women. But I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about what you do online.
So what I do online is I started as a blogger after being an interior designer and have moved into the YouTube world, which has been super fun and creating videos. And so I tend to kind of straddle both worlds, blogging and YouTube. And I talk about my 4 kids, including twins, and how you can be a great mom, but you don't have to lose yourself, which I've done before, and then come back from it. So you can and also taking back your body and your home and your identity and all of that jazz. So that's kind of what I do, but we document improving our home and parenting, and I'm moving more away from the little kid phase to more the lifestyle, and it's through my lens. It's life through my eyes.
Well, especially as life moves on.
Yes.
Like our little ones, we both have 4-year-olds that are starting school, and it's like you can't talk about all the baby things all the time because you're not in it anymore.
And
it's
I
hard.
feel like there was a chapter when I started blogging there was so much I wanted to say about twin pregnancy and mental health and having twins and tips. And I kind of said it all. And now is the new chapter where it's like, now I'm taking back my self-care and my home. So it's always exciting because it can evolve with you, and it is. So that's kind of where I am in that journey.
Very nice. And you mentioned you have 4 kids. Did
4
you say
kids.
that? Yeah. I was like, I feel like we need to just
a son and 3 daughters.
Yeah.
So 9-year-old son, 7-year-old daughter, and then 4-year-old twin girls.
Woo!
Yeah.
Exciting. Awesome. So thank you. And she is Nesting Story everywhere. And by the way, everyone, I'm going to have all of the links in the show notes so you can see and follow all of my favorite people here. Vanessa, hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Good.
Thanks for having me here. This is so exciting.
I'm so excited. So you are one half of an amazing duo, and then you also have your own little shtick that you're doing online. So tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Vanessa from Vanessa and Melissa online. And I also do my own stuff on the side, The Candid Mommy. I started off in television. I actually went to film school, and I always wanted to work in film and TV and production, and met my partner Melissa at Rogers, and we started a TV show. So we talked about all things from parenting, lifestyle, and then we evolved online. Like we started our channels online, and really that took over. And we like to talk about everything that we're going through in life, parenting, marriage, now separation. So we kind of share it all together as a duo. And then, like I said, I have my own stuff on the side, The Candid Mommy, where I like to share my journey, but with more of a humorous tinge.
You've got some acting chops. Like, I was like, damn, with your parodies and...
To be honest with you, that's what I really love to do. That's kind of my true passion, is making parodies and really like laughing your way through motherhood, because I have laughed my way through most of my life, and I plan to continue to do so.
It's awesome.
So, yeah.
Elana, hi.
Hi.
So before Elana even gets into what she's going to say about herself, she just launched her own podcast.
I did.
Like today. Which is so exciting.
Yes.
So again, she's going to have her links below. But Elana, tell me a little bit about you and what you do.
So I'm Elana McGinn. My company is Goodnight Sleep Site. I started in the marketing world. So I went to school for marketing and actually started in the fashion industry and music industry. And then had a kid and wasn't sleeping. And was a fashion buyer at the time and traveling a lot, and it just wasn't working really for our life, my husband and I, and just kind of fell into the sleep thing. Started helping friends. This was really before the industry it's a very up and coming, fast growing industry, but before it was really around that people were hiring people to help sleep train their kids. Right. So started Goodnight Sleep Site when I was pregnant with my twins, launched that. Now we have a team of 20 plus consultants throughout Canada and the US. And we work on family sleep health, so helping babies to adults sleep better. And yes, today I launched my first episode on our new podcast called This Girl Loves Sleep. So that's kind of a new project that we're working on, and it's exciting.
I love it. I mean, who doesn't love sleep? I feel like it's all I talk about. In the morning, how did everyone sleep? At night, planning my sleep. Like, it's
So
just
true.
sleep. So it's very exciting.
Yes.
And I mean, she's also sleeping with some celebrities. So, I mean, she's got some pretty awesome clients.
It's been a good year. It's
Yeah.
been a good year. Yeah, it's been fun. It's company is growing, and I have to say my girls are amazing. My team of girls are awesome, and they let me do all these fun things. So without them, yeah, I'm lucky to have them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, if you happen to be here from any one of these three amazing people's communities, I'm AmandaMuse, and I have a YouTube channel I started 6.5 years ago on YouTube, talking about like little mom updates and what my kids are eating and that kind of thing in Malaysia. And it's just kind of morphed into, motherhood through my lens and things that I find interesting. And now I have this baby podcast that I love so much. So today, I'm pumped to just talk about our friendships and how they impact us, right now, but also how they have sort of, formed us and helped us grow throughout the years as we were young kids and teenagers and moved around our lives. Because I just think it's one of these things that we all sort of rely on as having our friends in our lives. They impact us greatly. They actually help us make our biggest life decisions sometimes. And yet, are we making enough time for them right now in this phase of life? Because I feel like time is of the essence. I found this really interesting quote from this professor. So he's from the Ohio University, and he said he interviewed people from like 14 years old all the way up to 100. And he said that friendships actually everyone wants the same thing from a friend. They want somebody to talk to, somebody to depend on, and somebody to enjoy. And even though the circumstances may change, the expectation remains the same. And I think that that's pretty, if you think about your friends. I mean, also, side note, you can hear my dog going hard on her toy. I might have to take that away. So yeah, the expectation remains the same with these friends. We have all these little areas we want them to fill, but the circumstances change in our lives and how we sort of fill those voids. So I wonder right now, I'm curious to know how you guys are feeling in terms of, are you satisfied in that area of your life with your female friends?
I would say yes for me,
Okay.
but I've focused on working on how I am as a friend in the past couple of years and who my friends are in the past couple of years. I've really made a point to be more selective about who I'm giving my energy to and also how I'm coming across. And I think, and this is sometimes when it's Joanna talking, and when
Yes.
Amanda and I are driving, sometimes we'll like give each other advice on areas we need to work on. And one of the areas you pointed out was how I was coming across when I first met people. And it was good because I would have never known. I
remember that conversation.
And it was great. I totally took it and have completely changed how I present myself and how I talk to people. And I didn't realize how I was being very like almost too intense professionally and like intimidating and not open enough and not like relaxed and just, you know what I mean? So, I feel like right now I'm in a really good place.
Actually, that's a funny story. So we were driving
I
in
was
the
gonna say, I
car.
wanna hear the
I'm like,
story.
okay, let me tell you. So Joanna and I are part of the same sort of management sort of company. And that's how we met. And we were at a barbecue. And here this tiny feisty little thing comes up to me. And because how tall are you?
5'2".
5'2", so I'm 5'8". She's a little bit smaller than me. Giant husband. So there's like this dynamic, and I'm like, who's this woman? I haven't met her before. And she walks up to me, and I'm like, hey, I'm Amanda. At the time, I'm not sure that I would have introduced myself like I'm a YouTuber and I have all this experience online. Just more like in a social, like, hey, I'm Amanda. I just, I moved overseas, blah, blah, blah. I have 2 kids. And she was like, hey, I'm Joanna. I've been doing this online for this long. And I was like, damn, that's overwhelming. And I was like, I didn't know that about you. But then we started doing similar campaigns. We started driving together. And I was like, okay, it was more like, you were right. You were so like, I need to tell you what I am professionally because we're in this professional environment. But yet it can almost overwhelm the person. And then you're like, I didn't know that. And so we had this great conversation where you had said to me, you need to define more clearly what you do online.
We kind of coached each other. Like I tried to help you present yourself in a way like, no, like you need to see who you are and what you've created and not downplay it. And I need to dial it back a bit. And that came from when I started blogging. I didn't know anyone. I knew Elana online, which was like another great story I could tell. But like, I didn't really know people in person. And then I'd go to these big conferences and feel like I had to sell. And like, what's your pitch? What's your pitch? So that for me was ingrained at that point. And I didn't have that group of in-person friends that I could just let my guard down around.
And it's special, I think, too, when you can actually say those things to a friend and it's not an insult and it's not taken defensively. It's actually received and given, and it's like uplifting and helpful.
That's rare.
Right?
And when you find that person, you have to hold on to them. Someone who will, because I find myself very drawn to people who are straightforward and honest. And I find if you can find that person who can take that criticism and give it in a constructive way, it's total gold, because I would never known that about myself otherwise.
Right.
I didn't see
and to
it.
know it came from a place of love. Like it wasn't like I'm going to try and change you.
You weren't trying to take me down.
No.
You were trying to like, because I was saying to Amanda at the point, like, you know, I feel like this person doesn't like me, or this person doesn't make eye contact with me when we're together, or this person just gives me the cold shoulder. And she's like, well, you may want to just work on this and this. And then that has made such a difference. Now there still are those people that
we
don't
can't
make eye contact. And I'm like, I don't have time for you. But
still too.
Yeah. But you'd be surprised maybe what they're thinking of you too. Like I always, because I'm that way too. Like we're women, right? So we just like overanalyze every single look and think, and they're probably not even recognizing that they're doing. They probably love you to death, but they're people that just don't make eye contact. You never know, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, would you guys, so I'm looking at Vanessa here, like, do you have a lot of female friends, or are you someone that has like a small group? Or how do you think about your friendships?
I have several groups, actually.
Okay.
And I have like a group of friends who I've been best friends with since I was 5 years old. And they're like my family, like my sisterhood. I have my friends who I've met later in life through my husband. So all the wives of his friends who have now become really good friends of mine. And then I have women like you guys who I've met through work who I consider good friends as well in a different way. So I think I have different pockets of friends, different groups, and like I love and respect them all the same. They're just different and they have different stories behind them, and I value them all the same. And you just see them at different times in your life and have different experiences with them. But I think it's taken me a long time to get to this point and to see everybody enough and to manage them all well. And I feel like now that my youngest is over 2, that I'm finally on top of my friendships again.
Got you. Oh, yeah. Time.
That 2 is a big age, I think. It's a turning point.
Would you, and Vanessa, would you describe yourself as an extrovert? Because though that amount, I'm more of an introvert extrovert. And so I know that I have friends who I don't have to put work into. And then I have, say, my 3 close friends, then my larger group of friends that I love. And then outside that, it's friends that if I saw them at a get together, we'd pick up where we left off, but I don't feel like I have to put the work in. Would you consider yourself an extrovert because it seems like you're able to give a lot more to larger groups of people, or?
I would say I'm very social.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband is too. Like I love being with people. I love hanging out with my girlfriends. I try to do girls' nights away, and I've done girls' trips. Like that is really important to me. So, and yeah, like I love being around people. And I know like often people will be like, oh, I need alone time. And I do like alone time here and there. But to be honest, I like being with people. Like I like talking and connecting and sharing, and yeah, total extrovert, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
Actually, let's all take a moment. So obviously Amanda, total extrovert. Elana, what would you consider yourself?
I'm a total loner. Like
Interesting.
I am. Yeah. And I know, and people always say that because of what I do. I'm, on TV and doing the podcast and this and that. And, but I am. And I have friends. I mean,
Obviously.
It's not like I'm a loner where I don't have
Right.
friends. But like the friends I have, other than you guys, like people that I've met through work that I consider obviously friends. But what I call like my heart and soul friends, I've been friends with since, I was 9 or 10 years old. And they're the friends that, when you say I don't have to put in effort, like I do have to put in effort, but it's like we're all in the same boat. We're all young, small kids working. So it's like if we don't talk for a month, we just pick up where we left off. But they're my ride or dies. Like they're my friends. If anything happened, I could call and I knew that would be there. But yeah, I'm a total introvert, loner, and not like shy. Like if I'm in a public setting, I talk, and I like girls' nights and social, but like I'm completely comfortable being by myself and could be by myself for days, which isn't necessarily a good thing. Because that's when, if it's anxiety and things like that, that's where things can get crazy, because then you get stuck in your head, right? So I have to sometimes force myself to because I also work by myself, for myself. So it could be,
like you have to think about scheduling that kind of stuff in. Do you
find even if it's just like going out to the mall or just being somewhere where I'm around other people and not just like because I could literally be by myself.
I think we've had this conversation.
And be okay with it.
Because the thing is, being an introvert doesn't mean you don't enjoy people.
No, not
it just
at all.
means that you require time, and then you got to come back to you, because you don't get energy from others, you get energy from yourself. So you need to recharge.
Because I'm an introvert extrovert, and I totally relate to what you're saying, Elana. Is I need to be able to be alone for a bit or quiet to recharge. I can't. Whereas a lot of extroverts can actually recharge more and more from being around people. I find where I need to have that like almost sensory deprivation moment where it's like lights are off, I'm laying down in bed, like I'm just being quiet, there's no talking, and then I'm recharged, and then I can go again. But I can go to a party and be on and speak to a group of people and be on camera, no problem. Put me in a grocery store, I have to talk to a grocery store checkout woman, and I'm just cracks me up.
That actually is the most total opposite, which is hilarious that we're friends. Like, if I have been in the house for too long, like you're saying, Dean's often like, girl, you need to get out. Like, you need to see some people. I start to get in my head, and I'm like a zombie person. And he's like, babe, you're an extrovert. Like, it's like, I'm like Tinkerbell. You need like clapping or people to believe in you to be alive or something.
I'm
like,
not good if I'm alone too
same.
long. I start to get like foggy, and I'm like, it's not a good thing.
I start thinking, I'm like, I have migraines now. I'm like, no, you just haven't left the damn house. Breathe some outdoor air. So I feel like something that has been brought up a little bit is having these friendships since childhood. Something that I find unique is I do have the odd friend that I've known since childhood, but I wouldn't say that they're my ride or dies. And I'm curious, is it because, and I'm sure we'll work through this over the course of the episode, but like I have lived in a lot of different places, quite far from home. So I'm wondering, because, I often say, and I've said it before in videos many times, that to me, friendship is based on proximity. Because if you can like get together with a friend, it rekindles that friendship. Because to me, friendship is like, it's like a fire. It's like this dynamic thing. You have to keep putting a log on it. And even if it, dwindles down and is just embers, it'll still be kind of there. And then you throw another log, and then like you were saying, Elana, could go a month. You see each other again, it reignites it. And then it's like this dynamic, constantly moving kind of creature. So I'm wondering, to take it kind of back to when we were young girls, like small girls, how friendships were then. And if you can, so you have childhood friends that you guys have grown up with. Like, what were some of the joys that you experienced as like little girls in friendships? Because the first thing that comes to my mind, even when I was thinking about this, was like, little things like we would do like back tickles or like sleepovers.
Cool, tight squeeze.
Oh my God! Exactly. Like, I remember we would sing like Christmas songs, and like, we didn't record them, obviously, didn't think about those things, but like all of these like fantasy games, and you'd be in your best friend's room and like, I don't know, pretending to be Spice Girls. Like, so tell me about that.
I had all guy friends when I was really young, and I have 2 older brothers, and I really think that played a part in and I was a bit of a troublemaker.
So this is Joanna, by the way.
Which surprises me about you, Joanna.
I know.
Yes.
I like these stories. I want more.
Yeah, like I was. As a kid, I would always try to push the limit, and then that's why I would find myself with the guys, and I was never, my 2 ride or dies now are from childhood, grade 4. And they're like my 2 best friends, who I have actually even had a falling out with each of them before, but now we're like tighter than ever, and we see each other all, like, we make a point almost every month to get together because we don't live super close. And those are 2 girls, but those would be my 2 first true friends that were girls. But I had a lot of trouble with friends as a kid.
Because grade 4 is like 9 years old, 10 years old?
8.
8
okay.
9, 8 or 9. So yeah, that was about 9 because I'm an early birthday. But before that, it was almost all guy friends.
Interesting.
Get in trouble. I put attack on the teacher's chair and stuff. Like, I would get so much trouble if one of the guys would like I would help the guys pull the clock off the wall in the classroom to change the clock to see if the supply teacher would let us like that. Anytime I saw a point where I could, and I don't know what it was, and I see it in one
of
of my.
Joanna more.
I know. I don't know. It's gone. It's kind of gone. I say things.
She got it out of her system at a young age.
Yeah, it's funny, and I never felt like I was one of those girls, even when I had girlfriends, where I would be like I'd go to the slumber parties, but I was never one that was doing like the dance routines or anything like that. And I think that was hard for me because I also had a very hard time keeping secrets and stuff, and would get myself in fights with friends because I'm such an open book that it would I'd spill the beans, and I don't know. I had some tumultuous friendships.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more of no, I was choreographing the dance routines.
Me too.
I was
Yeah,
usually one of the Spice Girls, trying to do my thing. I had a sleepover every weekend.
Yeah.
My parents lived their best life. They were, and
Oh
I was
my
always
Yeah.
Same. My friends were watching Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street
Totally.
at my house.
Yes.
When we were 5 years old.
Sleepaway camp.
Yeah. I think that my house was known as the horror movie house.
That's hilarious.
We're never home.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So your parents weren't home.
Well, yeah, and I had quite a tumultuous childhood.
Yes.
There was a lot of things that went down that were not pleasant in my childhood.
Right.
So it probably wasn't the norm. But I had my very first best friend. We must have been, I'm going to say we could have been possibly 4 when we met because our parents worked in advertising together in Toronto. And so they kind of set us up and we lived not far from each other. And she has been my best friend my entire life.
Wow.
And we've had our ups and downs,
Yep.
for sure. But it's always been about how much we see each other. It's never been anything too explosive. It's more about time. But yeah, so and along the way we picked up a couple girls and we have this group.
That's
that we've been friends with for
amazing.
years. Yeah.
That's
but
amazing.
I think because of the things I went through in my childhood, they literally became my family. So when my mother passed away when I was 11. And my father was not around. And so I was taken out of my home and I lived with relatives I didn't know. And so these were my friends throughout all of this. They stayed with me. Their parents would invite me to their cottages and they really stuck with me. And thank God they did. And so now we're still, we're sisters.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
because and I feel similarly as a grown-up. When I was living in Malaysia, I was far from my family, far from everything I knew to be normal. And it was you need stability. You need people you can call upon if you're sick or if you just want to have a laugh or somebody,
Totally.
right? And they do become your family.
Mhm.
It's true.
Yeah. I lived with one of my best friends for a year in high school with her
Wow.
family.
Oh, wow.
They took me in. And you think about it now, would you take someone else's kid in for a year who's
Wow.
16? I mean, that's a big thing to have
Yeah.
done for a kid.
No
So,
kidding.
Yeah.
No, my mom did that for a short period, actually. It just reminded me of a girl I've known since we were 5. She had a similar thing, bit of a difficult home life.
Yeah.
And so sometimes she would end up at our house. But we fought like crazy when she would do that because there's almost a weird territorial thing. Because I was this is my house. This is my mom, know?
Right.
And so that was a weird dynamic, a bit of a power struggle having her in the house.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
well, you were saying Elana, you've had friends
Yeah.
since childhood.
Yeah, we, I'm very fortunate where when I grew up, we just had a great little circle of friends. I had a lot of guy friends too. And it was just that group that, it was that classic, thing is just, you just have that group of friends that you just kind of grew up with. And, that's what it was. And now a majority of the girls, I'm still very close with. When I say I'm very close with, there's 3 or 4 that, again, like I say, are my ride or die, but there's still that group that, just example of one of friend that I grew up with. She literally lives around the corner from me and we never see each other. And we hadn't talked in forever. And she texted me I think she was looking for an eye doctor for her kids because we live in the same area. And it was just picking up right away. It was razzing each other and, joking about our husbands and this. And it's just, so yeah. And these are all friends that I just grew up with. So I was very much that girl that, sleepovers and parties and fun stuff. Yeah. Guys and girls.
And it's interesting. So one thing we all have in common is that we all have a daughter or, multiple daughters. I was thinking about, how are we going to nurture this in our girls? One thing that I read is that they often think that men are very competitive with each other, but women are competitive about connection. So where that kind of falls into play is I'm sure it either has happened to you, you've done it to someone, or you see it happening to your kids where all of a sudden, your girls, you got a little girls group and all of a sudden one is excluded. And for a woman, if you even think about your friendships, like what defines a best friend? It's really knowing all the intimate details of their life. I want to know. Yeah, you're having a bad day. Grab a cup of coffee. I want to know it all. You know, like it's the connection that you're feeling. So have you ever been outed from a group, or have you ever outed someone?
Oh yeah.
Like ghosted, you mean?
Yeah, like just pushed out of a group, like you're friends one day and then you go back to class in grade 2 and now you're not friends.
Oh, I've been ghosted as an adult. Not
in high school.
That's a whole story. Yeah, oh for sure. You go through. My daughter right now is going into grade 6 and I'm terrified because to me grade 6 and 7, maybe even 8, but grade 6 and 7 were like the worst years for girls. They're just, can I swear?
Yeah,
they're just like, they're just bitches at that age. I'm sorry, but they are. So I'm like, ooh, she's going into that
all the
grade,
hormones.
and she's got a great group of girls, and she's a great little girl. But I just know that she's entering that stage where it's just gonna get
cutthroat.
Cutthroat, and it like breaks, and it brings you back.
Yeah,
like I think
it
I have
totally.
the oldest.
There's like trauma.
I'm having some moments with my older kids where I'm like, oh, and I can't just go and fix it. Like we
No,
cannot
you
just
can't.
go to the
And
schoolyard.
you want to, but you
I know.
can't.
I want to so much, and it's amazing how it just, you know, my husband's like, why are you so fat? I'm like, because it brings you back to when I was going into grade 6 and this girl was mean to me, and so I know she's entering that stage, and it just like
I think it happens earlier and earlier
does.
now, because to give you a short story, last year my daughter was starting grade 2, and literally on the first day of school, a girl in her class who she was in the same group of friends with came up to every girl around us and gave her an invite to her birthday.
it's the worst.
Every girl except my daughter. And I couldn't believe it. And the mom was standing there. I almost felt like, well, I don't think she loves me for some reason. She has no idea. I don't even know her. But anyhow, and my daughter was standing there. She didn't cry. She didn't get upset. But we had like a really long conversation over it after school.
That makes me want to
It was
throat
upsetting.
punch the
I was
mother.
totally-
Like,
It was and to be honest with you, I gave her some good looks throughout the year.
oh man.
But at the same time, I'm like, do you want to be friends with someone like that?
Exactly.
Like, if she's going to exclude you. And I said, if you want to know why, ask her.
Exactly.
If you want to know why you didn't get invited, don't be angry about it. Don't be rude. Just go up to her and ask her. So, of course, the next morning, well, the mom's standing there and I'm standing there. My daughter decides to ask her why she didn't get invited to her birthday.
Love it.
And I'm like, oh, this is slightly awkward. And the response she gave her, like right near me, was, because my mom doesn't know your mom.
Ugh.
She had been at her birthday the year before. Our very
that
brief.
makes me feel sorry for
I
that
felt,
child.
yeah, because she was
That's
being
how she's being
manipulated.
raised.
She clearly knew, you know, and
Actually,
I was like, you know what?
You bring up a very good point about the dynamic of the mothers.
Yeah.
When I was younger, my parents divorced when I was 7. We lived in this apartment thing, and then when my mom and my stepdad had their baby, so my little sister, we moved to a townhome. So you've got this small quarters. You probably got 7 houses in one, 7 houses on the other, and it kind of faces this little parking lot, right? So we moved in and we were new to the neighborhood. I was always a tall drink of water as a kid, pretty good athletically, could fit in really well. So the neighbors, there were 3 girls and a boy, which is actually a lot when I think about it now, how small those townhomes were. Damn. Anyway, maybe some, I want to say not everyone's in the best financial situation where I grew up. And the girls were all really nice to me. And there was this whole group, and we'd get together, everybody after school would hang out or after dinner, and then we'd all go home. Well, one day it all changed, and all of a sudden the neighbors started calling me names. And started, this sounds so ridiculous as a grown person, but the anger, it bubbles up in me even right now talking about it. They would draw with chalk outside my little stairway, horrible things, graphic sexual pictures, call me a slut every time I left the house.
Brutal.
For what? And I truly think it's because a couple of the boys started to pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Jealousy does evil things.
Yeah.
Also, my mom, she's maybe not the best at forming her own female friendships, whatever. She'd kind of befriended some of the moms, and all of a sudden they stopped being friends. Mm-hmm. And now that trickled down to me. Yeah. Those girls made my life a living hell for I'm not really kidding, 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
With you.
And I actually left because I couldn't endure it. I remember I was 19 when I moved to Toronto, and I remember just being I'm so sick of why because of maybe my physical appearance, why because of my intellect, because I was good at school, why does that mean that all of these girls get to hate on me? And it's what kind of like negative shit is going on in their houses that they get to now mistreat others. Like, so, you know, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen our kids do or say things that you're just like, for the love, like we need to talk about that. Like you can't treat friends like that. Yeah. Like, have you seen that in your kids?
Yes, I have. So first of all, as a kid, like I've talked about this before, like I had moments where I was a bully and I was on that side. I was like the popular girl group because, and I look back and I think about why was I like that? I was the girl with like, that was known as like the pretty face, but I was curvier, but I never played sports. And I felt like I was always compensating. Like my self-confidence was pretty low. And so I had to get the first word in, the first jab in. And I was always funny, the funny one and everything. But I would... Anytime I felt threatened, I remember this new girl came to our school and she was really pretty and all the guys were drawn to her. And I started like just why would you like her? And I was one of those, and I think it was self-confidence issues. I also know in my family, although I had a great upbringing, the one flaw, which we talk about as adults and like I'm friends with all my siblings, because I was one of 4 too. And parents who traveled a lot and everything, we got away with a lot. We even got away with bullying each other inside our home. And I think that then like my older brothers would kind of tease me. So then I would take it out on other kids, you know?
It's like I appreciate your vulnerability about this because I think so many of us have had moments like I used to beat the crap out of my brother. And I mean, my brother's like 6 foot something now that it stopped because he threw me against a wall and I was like, right, you're big. But I mean, there is that dynamic of like, you're feeling insecure. People are bullying you. I'm going to take it out on that kid.
Yeah.
Because they're there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's and I would try to be one up them because I felt so insecure that I wasn't the skinniest or the most athletic. So I had to be something. Right. So I was the girl that you don't mess with. And the girl that, you know, so and now I see one of my kids, my oldest daughter, Bo, there's traits in her that were just like me. She has no problem causing trouble at school. She's doing way better, but we had some phases. And there was this one situation where I found out a mom had called her out on the schoolyard. And I was livid, and Bo came home and she's like, I have no idea why. And I stormed into the school and I was like, this is not okay because I don't even know what happened. And the mom cannot do that. First of all, I've had the situation where the other mom, that mom that told her off in the schoolyard then tried to befriend me one day when we volunteered together, and I kind of brushed her off because I was not okay with how she handled that. And then our 2 girls wanted to play together and wanted to have play dates, and I was not about to I just didn't want to even have that contact with that mom. So I kind of get from that side too. And then, but what I've been doing, I've made a conscious effort with all of my kids' friendships is I've put Bo now in brownies. I signed her up. This is like Girl Guides.
I did brownies.
I never did it, and I swore I would never do it. I was just totally against the whole. I was against it all. I was like, why would I do that? So much work. Well, I'm like her best friend, who I really love, and I love her parents, signed up. And I'm like, you're going to get a uniform. You're going to get some structure. Like maybe hopefully it'll be like a little bit of hint of like military school or something. Like get out there and do that every week. But I think it's going to be good for her to really form that friendship and that structure and have that. We got babysitters for all the girls because I think it's hard to raising 4 kids and trying to help develop friendships for especially your older kids when you're so stuck at home with little ones. So we've really made a conscious effort to get babysitters for the other kids to help bring like our son out with 3 friends to the movies and dinner and things like that to really build those friendships more because we were realizing a few months ago that they were falling behind in the friendship game and they weren't putting in their time that other friends were developing these close friendships.
The younger kids or the older kids?
The older kids. And then even with our twins with their recent birthday party, we invited a bunch of friends from daycare. Ended up, surprise, surprise, our 2 girls invited all boys, almost all boys, but we're trying to really, as parents now, make an effort in helping them develop those closer friendships. And I realized
that's a job in itself.
6 months ago, my husband and I realized you actually have to make a conscious effort to help these friends, especially in this day and age where they're not riding their bikes around like I was until it was dark with the neighborhood kids. Like you have to miss.
Yeah, that's true.
It's changed.
I find too, like I am forming friendships with the parents of the kids that my kids like. And hopefully they're cool. It's worked out so far.
Yes, that's awesome.
I've become actually really good friends with my daughter's best friend now. And like we hang out all the time. They actually move down the street. We go for beach days. We work out together at the gym like 4 times a week.
Nice.
Her and I have a lot in common.
And that's like Bo's best friend now with the brownies. I'm like, if we're going to go camping, we're going to carpool together. We're going to go camp. Like, I'm good with that.
It's important to do, because I noticed this with my daughter when she started going into like grade 2. As you say, like that's when kind of things start socially and things like that. And I'm not that like parent that, it sounds terrible, I get involved in my kids' lives, obviously, but I'm not involved in the school. Like, I'm just not that parent.
You don't have to be.
Yeah, there's a parent for everything.
Totally. So my job was like, be friends with the parents who are.
Yeah,
girl. But it takes a village. So as you were saying, it's really important to me now, and it can be work for me to create new relationships, because I am so stuck in my own little brain sometimes.
And you're busy.
And I'm busy, totally. But to make friends with my kids' good friends, because you want other parents to have your back, so I've developed friendships now with my kids' parents, my kids' friends' parents, because that's important to do. It's
worth doing, and I think it also opens a line of communication when it comes to cell phones, when it comes to dramas that are happening at school or anything that's going on. Then everyone's on the same page. Like, we had a situation where my daughter's in grade 2 and she wanted her own email address or her own, I don't know, for texting or something, and I said no. And 2 of them had said yes. And she was like, really? Are you going to ruin my life? Are you going to be that? Like, she was so angry at me and my daughter. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not budging. Then, like, the other moms text me and they're like, so you're not going to do it? I'm like, sorry, she can use my husband's cell phone between 7 and 8, and she can text, and they can text his phone, and that's it right now. And so then they all were like, okay, we're doing the same thing.
Smart.
So everybody, reverted backwards. And then we find out what apps they've been looking. Like, it's just, it's a good
village.
Yeah.
And each stage, requires a different level of insight, and you do need that village to, seek out. So the 3 of us here, so Vanessa, Elana, and myself, we have our eldest are daughters, right? Is your eldest? Yeah. So that's an interesting dynamic. I am the eldest, so I get it. It's a fiery situation. I find, like, have you had, like, one of the things I noticed with my daughter, with Esme, is the leadership quality is good, but is also bad. It's also, I find myself, or not so much lately, I don't know why, but I find that we always have conversations about, like, ways to lead people in a way that's positive, and when you have to let other people take the lead. Like, you can't, in other words, don't be bossy, and I hate the word bossy because it feels like very feminine or something. It's like a very negative feminine tone about it, but it's like, just, it's okay to be a leader, but you got to learn how to, like, hone in on those skills. Have you found that with your girls?
See, it's a personality thing too, though. Like, so I have 3 kids. My youngest are twins. My eldest is a daughter, and then my twins are boy, girl. My eldest she can be that bossy older sibling for sure, but it's my youngest twin girl that's the bossy one. I can sense with her friends. Like, my eldest is not a leader with her friends, and I don't fault her for that. She's a follower for sure. I would love her to be a bit more of a leader with her friends, but she's not. That's just her personality, that she's a follower for sure. Thankfully, she has a good group of friends where I don't care if she follows them. Whereas my youngest daughter is the one I have to have the conversations with, because I see that she's the bossier one. And I don't know if it's the dynamic because she has a twin brother, so she bosses him around a lot too. She's just got that bossy, which I love about her, because her and I are very similar in that aspect. She's a bit of a loner too. She kind of beats her own drum. So I think it depends on the personality.
Okay.
I don't know if it's like an older, younger sibling thing.
Interesting.
And I'm also a younger sibling, so I tend to, and this sounds terrible to say, but I tend to side kind of more with my youngest because I can relate more to her.
Totally.
Because I had an older sister, so I see what used to drive me nuts about what my older sister did to me. I see her do it to her younger sister, so I have to stop myself from doing that sometimes.
That is such an interesting perspective. I am feeling this in this moment because Esme will tease the crap out of her brother, and I'm like, girl, I see you, because I did that every day for like 15 years. Don't do that. You know what I mean? And I am hard on her because I identify with like what she's doing.
I'm hard on my oldest daughter because I was the youngest daughter that had the older sister bother me. So when she does it to her younger sister, I'm like, you can't do that. And I'll whisper to Lila, like, don't take that from her. Which is terrible because, like, anyways. That's
But
my
you're
own
trying to,
my
like-
own motherly
Well, and that's how I am
issues.
with Holden. Anytime I
Right.
hear picking on the girls or belittling or even the correcting all the time, I'm on it because I lived it and I was
Right.
picked by my older brothers. So
I'm so sensitive to my eldest because my sister, who is like 7 years older than I am, often reflects on how she felt like she had to take care of us all the time. And she felt like she had too much responsibility as the eldest. She had to babysit too much and she didn't get to have the childhood. I mean, it was difficult anyway, but she has a little bit of resentment over that. So I'm so uber sensitive not to keep reminding my daughter that she's the eldest, even though I feel like she does have a responsibility in that position to set somewhat of an example. I kind of try not to stress that she's the eldest because I think I've heard my sister say how so many times how she was too pressured as the eldest to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
and it can impact, I'm experiencing this now, and this is a conversation for another day, but I'm experiencing where I do have a younger brother and a sister, and it could have been some parental stuff that went wrong, but there was a lot of Amanda is up on this pedestal and everyone else, you can't compete, and it is not the reality, but it has impacted my relationship with my siblings. So it is interesting to think about that friendship dynamic too, like even amongst our
it could be a
kids.
whole other podcast talking
Yeah.
about
Oh,
our
girl.
siblings
Sibling
and-
dynamics.
Yeah.
It's a
Ew.
serious thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, put that in there. Make a
So
note.
as we got through those young days, being a teenager, having friends, Joanna talks about how she was like a bad girl. I was not a bad girl. I had like a really heavy backpack because I was like doing homework. Like I think I had such a difficult time at home that I needed something to like focus in on. I needed like structure. And so I went hard on like school. I don't know what the hell that did for me now as
I
a
don't
grown
know
up.
how I
Nothing.
passed school. I really don't. In fact, I failed one.
Just how she passed.
I don't know. I think about it.
I don't know how I
even
did
remember
either,
how to
to be
do
honest
long
with you.
division.
It's different now though than like.
But
don't
like,
even get me started on that
yeah.
now.
Anyways,
But those teenage friendships,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
things start changing. We start finding significant others, boyfriends, whatever, drinking, all of those things. Like, what was like some of that change like? Like, did you have like girlfriends that you were just like, these are my people? I mean, what did we have in those days? We had pagers,
Yes.
we had ICQ.
ICQ.
Pagers.
Oh my
We
god.
had
email.
See,
We just got
I'm
email.
older, so we didn't even have pagers back then.
I didn't have a
Payphones,
pager.
guys.
I never had a
Yeah, I
pager.
had payphones too.
We did
No,
payphones.
we did payphones too, but
Yeah.
pagers were coming in.
Pagers were like
I
in
never
my
had
20s.
one.
That's when
Yeah.
they started coming in. Yeah, you know what? I was a good kid. My parents were strict. Not strict like scary, mean strict, but strict. Like I had a curfew. If I got grounded, I was that kid. Whereas I had some friends that were that kid that, same thing, parents disciplined the same way. And then you had those group of friends that parents were very lax. So those were the houses that we went to. And
Right.
those are the sleepovers. That's where we slept over because they were like the fun ones, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have, but my parents had rules and I followed them. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
to this day, I was a rule follower.
Yeah,
We had,
I
like-
lived on my own in high school. I got an apartment.
Oh, wow.
And I had a roommate. And so
Yeah.
my
You were responsible, probably.
Well, I look back now and I'm like, I was. I don't know how I finished high school. Like, my grades were fine. I always had 2 jobs. Like, I had a major social life. Like, I don't know how I did it. I look back now and I look at teenagers now and I'm like, I lived on my own when I looked like that. It's
Yeah.
kind of frightening.
Teenagers are different now than
Yeah,
they're
I
so much
guess.
more entitled
But
than
like,
when we were.
yeah.
Yeah. For me in high school, I was part of this popular group all through high school. Our parents were all well off. And so our parents would travel and we would have these massive parties at our houses and party hard. And then near the end of high school, I met Mike, who went to the high school down the street, and I was then like smoking and everything. He was doing homework on the weekends. He was still popular, but like a rule follower. And I ended up dating him, and I actually got an ultimatum from that group of popular friends being like, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to date someone outside the group? And I was like, yes, I do. And that was the end. And I left that group of friends and went and started hanging out with like the artsy group, which was more me and everything, and started to discover who I was at that point. And it wasn't until I went to art school, like art college, and then interior design school that I completely changed. Buckled down, straight A's, followed rules, took care of myself, my self-confidence built. Like, that's kind of my high school in a little summary. But I was suspended. I stole cake from a party. Like, I don't know why. Like, I just didn't care. I feel like it was like, I didn't
the caring
care.
thing. Like, you weren't probably afraid of what would happen.
I didn't care.
I did a lot of skipping. Like,
Yes.
I remember skipping
Ooh,
school.
yeah.
And
Skipping would tear because like if my dad found out I skipped, oh my god, like
yeah,
I was.
but I get a voicemail
I
in my
did not.
apartment being like,
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs., your daughter missed
Yeah,
you. I'm like, they
that's
don't
true.
even know I live on my own.
Our phone would ring
That's true.
during dinner, and it was an automated thing. and all 6 of us would be sitting at dinner. I'd run, grab the phone, pretend to have a short conversation with someone when it's the automated thing, saying Joanna wasn't in class today, and hang up. And I'd lie to everyone who it was. Okay. And that almost every single day. Like, it was just, I'm shudder at having 4
But
teenagers.
this is good for parents who have teens to listen to, because, like, there's hope. We all turned out just
for
fine.
sure.
If you find your way,
Yeah.
like, I think for me, going back to, like, the girlfriend conversation, like, in high school, I always felt like I was the underdog with everybody because of my family situation. And I also, too, like, went to a really good private school in Toronto, and, like I had an apartment, but it was like across the street from Sporting Life on Lytton. Like, it was like everybody had money around me except me. After my parents passed away, like, I was totally on my own, but still living amongst all these privileged kids. So I felt like the underdog. And I think when it comes to relationships, for me, like, I seek out the underdog kind of, or I like always want to be friends with everybody. Like, and if someone doesn't want to be friends with me, I struggle with it. Like, for me, it's like I always want to be open and friendly and make new female friends.
And to have that acceptance from your peers.
Totally. That's
So-
difficult for me.
Oh, yeah. I feel like and we're going to talk about social media and how that impacts our friendships, but there is this element of like, am I accepted? Have people, like, do you want to be my friend? So when I was 19, I had so in Quebec, you go to college. So you're like, finish high school 16, 17, 18 and a half-ish, you're finishing college. And then I moved from Montreal to Toronto. And it wasn't so much moving out of like, this is going to be fun. This was like a necessity. It was a very volatile situation in my home with my mom. And it was like, girl needs to go. So my dad was living in Toronto, and I got this email. Oh no, it was like a newspaper clipping, because we didn't even like email really. Hello. I got this newspaper clipping from my uncle, and he was like, there's this job possibility to be a flight attendant. Like, would you want to do this? You're bilingual. It brings you to Toronto. It's this cool opportunity. And I was like, heck yes. So I interviewed. I got this job. Trained in Montreal over like...
Is that how you met Dean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. So that was like how many moons ago? 19. So I met him when I was 20. So here I was training in Montreal in the depths of winter, January. You do all this like flight attendant training. And then I moved to Toronto. And I did have this this group of friends that I went to high school with, but we didn't like befriend each other until college. Again, proximity. We were in the same classes. Like, that dynamic was different, but it was interesting because when I went and moved, we had a little going away party and I had a boyfriend and everything, but I was like, when you're like,
see you never.
Girls got to go. Yeah, bye.
I did that after high school. I was like, gone to BC. See ya.
Yeah, broke my heart a little, but it's interesting how you have to make those decisions, right? So I move, and here I was, like, my first experience, loneliness. Like, oh my God, I'm living in this tiny basement apartment, but I'm going to call my best friends from home because they're my people, and I partied with them all summer, and all of a sudden, it was like this huge dynamic shift, and it was like, literally, they started spilling tea about me around town that I was I don't know why, but basically some slut for becoming a flight attendant.
Why do people always go for that one?
know.
Honestly.
Like, it's so low.
It is so
so
low.
low.
First of all, wasn't getting any for
but
a while.
people always go to
Didn't
that
know
period
anyone.
of minutes. Like,
Wish
it's
I was.
so
Yeah, should have been.
Yeah.
Would have been real convenient. Like,
and actually, that's a good podcast too, because making a choice doesn't mean you're a slut.
totally.
Even if you were. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, if you're in control. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
And it really was part of like female kind of identity at that time. It was like, that was such a thing to say, like, you're such a slut or something. But it was like the harshest thing that these two girls could have said to me, because I had gone through a lot in the 2 years that we were friends. And it was like, why? Because I moved away? Like, what?
Jealousy,
And it was,
again.
yeah, that jealousy,
insecurity, yeah.
that betrayal. And then you have to go through this whole period of like mourning the loss of a friendship at a very formative time in your life. Like, have you had those experiences where you've sort of, I know Joanna, Vanessa, you said you've had friends since youth where you kind of like have broken up for a little bit and then rekindled it. Like, were those in early days?
That
like,
was right. So when I think of my loneliest time, as you were talking, I'm like, what was my loneliest time? My first 3 years of motherhood. I had a bit of a falling out with a couple of friends. For some reason, and this is partly what Nesting Story is all about, is for some reason I thought being a perfect mom would be to let everything else go and just focus on motherhood. And that included, like, when I think about those first 3 years, I really did not have a lot of good connection with other friends. I also was one of the first to start having kids, because my first was born when I was 26. And yeah, that was my first 3 years where I really didn't have that lifeline. Like,
and it comes down to change, right?
So I tried mommy groups. I thought that's what I wanted. I couldn't stand it. These random people. I didn't want to talk to them. My husband would come home from work and I'd literally be pacing the halls deep in depression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those big formative years. So Vanessa, you were saying you were living on your own at like 16?
Yeah, so on 16 on my own. And then like literally the day after I graduated high school, I remember going to the Golden Griddle for the brunch with my girlfriends, and then they all at the Young Daysville, and then they all drove me to Pearson, and I was like, bye, and I just went to BC because I had to get out of there. Like everybody was going to Western and here and there, and I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be in the art scene. And one of my sisters lived in Vancouver and was like, "Come to Vancouver."
That's what everyone did, though. They
yeah,
went to BC, right?
Yes, and then I ended up in Whistler, of course, for a couple years. But so Vancouver seemed like a great place, and I kind of wanted a fresh start. I still kept close to all those girlfriends. They definitely went on a different path than I did. And I think I struggled with the fact that their path seemed so right and perfect and stable. And I didn't know, like, that wasn't my journey. My journey was something else. And like, I wanted to be creative and I wanted to be in film. And so I just took off. But yeah, I maintained all those friendships. There was one friendship though that I lost in my life. That was a big one. And it was, a friend who I lived with when I was on my own in high school. And she had a similar tumultuous childhood, but her like upbringing from like 0 to 10 was very different from mine. And I think 0 to 10 has a massive impact on your life later on. So we had some major differences, but our uniting situation, like the fact that we both didn't have parents and stuff, kept us together. And as we grew into women, like the choices that she was making versus what I was making were really different. Like, you know, she was the kind of woman who had no problem like having an affair with someone who was married, say.
Okay.
And so for me, that was not okay. You know, and whatever, to each his own. It just it created such a wedge in our friendship that I couldn't stay close to her any longer because it went so against the values that I lived by and wanted to live by. And it's sad because we were really close and she was really close to my friends now too. And we all kind of lost touch with her because of the choices that she was making. And that was a painful one for sure. And I've tried to reconnect with her, but I don't know.
Sometimes the gap is too big.
Yeah, and the decisions were too dark.
Yeah, I was reading something about friendships and it was saying that friendships will evoke feelings of anger, envy, competitions, all of those emotions that make us feel human. But sometimes you can rekindle it and recover from it, and other times you can't. Like you were saying, your values were so separate. Yeah. It was just too much.
It was too much. And also, during my first pregnancy, she came back to Toronto. And, like, she's a lovely person in there. There was just some damage that, anyhow, hopefully her life is better and she's healed. But, so anyhow, I tried to rekindle our friendship during my first pregnancy. And for me, when I met my husband and became pregnant, like, I almost feel like that's when my life started. Like my happiness. And so I was like so overjoyed to be pregnant and I couldn't wait to like share this with her and meet up with her. And it was like all the same darkness and those kind of things were floating around her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot have that in this life. Like I'm good now. Like I couldn't be her friend because I felt like she was the kind of woman who, if I let her in my home, like that she would probably
destroy
you. Go
you.
After my husband or go like I didn't trust her. There was no trust. And to me, friendship, the foundation is like you gotta have that trust and it's gotta be real and truthful. Like
I've experienced something similar more recently with a friend who I've basically decided I can't have that in my life. Just so moral compass different.
It's a big one.
I can't anymore.
And as you get older, like it defines you. Like your values define your life and who you are and your intentions. And
so I was ghosted as an adult.
Really?
As a friend, yeah. And normally when you hear of a friend being ghosted, it's because, they're toxic. Exactly what you're saying. So I think you guys know that I'm not a toxic person. Like that's not why I was ghosted. I hope you guys know that about me at least. But this was a friend who I met later on in life. And like I said, I am very much a loner. So my group of friends are friends I've had since childhood. Other than people that I've met, throughout my career that I consider friends, what I consider my heart and soul friends, it takes me a lot to establish that. And I'm kind of good with who I have. I wasn't really looking for any new friends in that capacity, but I met her through my husband at the time, my boyfriend, and her boyfriend were very good friends, and we met through that, and we just established this like amazing friendship for quite a few years. She was what I considered a heart and soul friend. But when I had my twins, I had a 3.5-year-old at home. I had newborn twins. I was just starting Goodnight Sleep Site. And so I was neglecting a lot, including myself, including my husband, including my family and friends for sure. And at the time, she was single, so no husband, no boyfriend, no kids. Could not even understand what my world was, nor could I really understand anymore what her world was, right? So yeah, she completely just, and did I neglect her? 100%. I will own that. But totally cut me off. And it was hard. It was, to this day, this was only, the twins are 7, so I guess this was about 6 years ago. To this day, like, she broke my heart. Like, I can't even, like, yeah, she was like a really good friend of mine. And it was hard. It's still, I've gotten over it now, but it took me a couple years to, like,
there's scar tissue. It's like,
yeah, like now I know for sure if she was to come back and apologize and whatever, I'm confident in saying, like, no, that there's too much hurt, like the friendship would be over. But there was years where I would have taken her back in a second because it really, like, it's hard. So yeah,
that heartbreak
being on the side of being ghosted. But again, your situation is different. That I can get.
But if she keep crawling to me right now, I'd probably be like,
come to mama.
Like, I definitely have, like, total love for her in my heart. And I do for all my friends, but
there's a lot of anger now with me. Like, I'm at that stage where I'm just like, screw you. You threw it. Now she has a son. She has a significant other and she has a son. And I remember the second I heard that she was pregnant, there wasn't like, I'm so happy for her. The very first thing I thought of was, good, now she's going to get it. Like, now she's going to understand. Now
she gave up. Yeah,
well, not give up, but now she's going to understand the
why
position,
you were in the state.
Why I was in the state. Because, if I had the opportunity to go back and make things right, I don't know that I could have, because I had a newborn twins. I had a 3-year-old. I had a business I was just starting. Like, yeah. Like, I give her what she needed. And I get that.
It's interesting that heartbreak. I feel like it's funny. The stories I keep sharing are of heartbreak for some reason, but I think it's just, I personally have been through so many changing, like, dramatic changes. But okay, so I'm living in Vancouver, and again, no friends, couldn't really find people at work because of the power position I was in. I was managing people. That's a hard dynamic to cross when you're trying to befriend people. Like, oh, let's go party, and then I'm your boss on Monday. It's weird. So that didn't really work out well, but I found this one friend, and we were both kind of like displaced people. So she was from South Africa. I'm from Montreal. We didn't really have a lot of people. Dean traveled a bunch. Dean would be gone for, like, what was it? 3 weeks away, 2 weeks home, or something insane when I think about it now. So there was a whole bunch of time I'd spend by myself. And so she would come to my house. I would cook her dinner. We'd watch movies. We'd get a bottle of wine. We'd ballroom dance together. Like, we were just like soul sisters, right? So then this opportunity comes up for us to move overseas, and Dean and we get hitched real quick. I didn't have like bridesmaids or anything at my wedding. I think there's a part of me that I value female friendships at the utmost, but I'm not certain I trust anybody with that kind of, you're my bridesmaid, like, you're my most important person. Like, I don't know that I place that kind of trust in anybody because I don't want to be disappointed, which is a weird way.
Well, it's funny, just to cut you off for a second. It's funny what they say is always look where you are at your place now. Who are you still friends with that were in your wedding party? And I'll admit, between my husband and I, not many.
Right.
And it's not, I don't want to say it's not because we're not friends anymore, but just lost touch, different stages of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
and I would say mine are exactly the same friends.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like, they were the
Mine are
girls
50-50.
50-50. Okay, so that's, and of 4 people.
My husband has friends exactly the same way I have.
Like, I think my entire life, and one day I'll have to, like, do a Draw My Life or something, has been very much like, girl, the only person you got is you. Mm-hmm. And so with that, but I'm still like, I'll fall hopelessly in love with people, friends, husbands, whatever, because I think it's essential to love, right? And so you do love your friends. Mm-hmm. And so I have got this best friend, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she's the one who drove me to the airport, and I'm like sobbing, I'm leaving everything, slipping the key under the door in Vancouver, and it was just like, talk about a traumatic life experience, right? So I get to Malaysia. It's a hard go. I mean, some of you have seen the videos and stuff, but you're making do. Well, she's going back to South Africa for Christmas because she goes like every year for a month or something. Well, South Africa to, like, if you were going to fly from like Singapore to South Africa, it's about 11 hours, which is way better than the 30 to come back to Canada, right? So I'm like, dude, I will come see you. Like, let's do this. Awesome. So she's got a boyfriend that like kind of met just before I left Vancouver. So she's in South Africa. I arrive. I'm so pumped. And I arrive. But like the day before I arrive, she goes and gets engaged. And I was like, oh my God. And then I arrived and I was like, oh my God, this entire trip became about planning a wedding.
Oh, goodness.
And your girl here
Nightmare.
is there for 10 of the longest fucking days of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm in Africa, okay?
Yeah.
I ain't close to no one.
Mhm.
And I get there and I was like so excited, but I wasn't met with warm hugs and open arms. And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And I'm like, her mom, just gonna say it, I don't care if they're listening, they broke my heart. She was not a warm, friendly person. And I was like, wow, like I'm really imposing and I'm already here and I didn't have a job and I didn't have a ton of, oh my
that's
God.
so brutal.
And I was like, what do I do? Well, by day like 2 or 3, I felt like there was this weird dynamic where I was like, is she feeling insecure around me? Like, does she think her
with
fiance?
new fiance?
Yeah, no, gross. Her fiance and I were like brother and
There's
sister.
nothing going on there.
It was a very like sibling dynamic between he and I. And first of all, he worshipped the ground she walked on, and it was very obvious. Like I could have been like, I was like a 3-headed Shrek monster. Like he didn't even notice my existence. Obsessed with her, and I thought, well, this is weird. But then we'd go to like look at venues, and I was like, I was the most awkward third wheel. Like I've never.
I have to say, does that not seem fast? Like to get you engaged and then do that the first week? I don't know. I was engaged for so long.
Well, you know why?
Like,
Because they both lived in Vancouver, but they wanted
and
to get
they
married in South
I
Africa,
see.
and they were
Okay,
there.
okay.
So they started like.
but that's
feel so
really
bad for
inconsiderate
you.
to you. No offense to that person,
Dude,
but-
it was more than inconsiderate. It was so painful to me. And I remember
Yeah.
like,
You're already a better friend than I to fly 11 hours.
Yeah.
yeah.
I would have been like, dude,
I
I'm going to
wouldn't
Cape
even do
Town
that.
Beach for. Call me later.
I'm like,
Yeah.
We can FaceTime.
I'd never been so, but I was like, I've never been so shocked. Like I felt like it was the biggest slap in the face. And so I think it was like day 3. I'm just going to say it. Her stepdad's a bit of an alcoholic. And so he would like crack a king can of beer at like 3 p.m. Dude, I was right next to him. I was like, I'd be sitting there banging back this beer.
Insanity.
He's like, do you want to go to the Olive Garden? Because they have like olives, like I'm like, done. I'm on the back of his 4-wheeler. We're like going, and he was the nicest man. We were both like hammered most days. But like I've never been so upset. And so then we went on this safari thing, which was, I truly feel like that trip was one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been in. But I had to do this weird separation in my brain over the last few years to separate her from the experience. And I remember one night just sobbing in this like little hotel room that I was by myself. And she finally, like, here's an example. So I'm sitting on this safari, like an open truck, like in Africa, you're going to see lions and tigers and whatever. So I've got like a big camera, DSLR, the little point and shoot. I was like so excited about this. This was just before my YouTube started. So I was like really into all this tech stuff. And I'm like, dude, can you hold my camera and take a picture of me? And she was like, why?
Ugh,
And I'm like,
yuck.
and her partner looked at her and he was like, because she wants a photo of her on this trip. Like, like what is wrong with you? And I was just like, okay. And so that night I was just sobbing in my hotel room, and I'm calling Dean, like he's in Asia, I'm in Africa. And I'm like, he goes, babe, I got a friend in Namibia. Do you want to fly to Namibia, which is like a little country just north of there? I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I've never been so heartbroken. She finally approached me like just before the end of that trip and was like, I'm so sorry for my behavior. And at that point, I honestly felt like I had been abused for like 10 days. The last day, so her partner left. He went back to Canada and we had one day just us. I mean,
Did she have a reason
Yeah,
for
I was
acting
there was
so
no reason.
strangely?
There was no reason.
Explain it?
She took me out with friends to like a coffee shop, and it's like I wasn't there. You guys know how outgoing and extroverted I am. I just like sat there with like a tea.
Yeah, those are the traumatic
those are-
experiences
yeah,
of your
those
life.
are-
Yeah.
That you're like,
So
That's
we
same
get
with
back,
you.
and I left. I had never been so happy to leave that place, and I was like, in my mind, I'm like, never going to speak to you again. And I got back to Malaysia, and Dean was like, I was like needing hugs and massages and like therapy for like that experience.
yeah.
And so I got pregnant shortly after that and like had Esme. And I remember she connected with me and she tried to apologize. And I was like, damage is done.
Yeah.
And we
Sometimes
actually,
the damage is
it
just
was,
too hard.
we had a
Yeah.
frank conversation. And I said to her, I have never been so mistreated in my entire life. And I grew up with a pretty rough upbringing. And I was like, that was the most disloyal, heartbreaking experience of my life.
Good for you for saying
It's
that.
sad when something like that happens in a friendship, when like you're just too scarred. Like, too many things happen, and you're like, I can't do it anymore.
What's worse though is when you don't have the closure. And
True.
That's something that I haven't had yet.
Right.
So I've had the closure to myself. Where
Yeah.
I'm like, you know,
You've
when you're
therapied
in the
yourself.
shower, you're like, I've gotten all my things out. But I've never had that closure, and I don't know that I ever will.
And it's hard to have. It's very hard.
when you don't have that closure.
Confrontation is a big one. And I remember like we tried to pretend like it didn't happen. Like she called me after I had Esme and she sent me a really nice gift. And I was like playing along. And then finally I was like, you know what? I can't pretend. Like I had found new friends. And so think about it too. I had no friends in Malaysia yet. She was like my one person. I hadn't had a friend in 6 months. And it was like, it was devastating. But yeah, I had the closure, and I follow her from time to time, and she has children now, and I will like a photo here and there on Instagram, but I ain't never going back to that.
I think there's something to be said for awareness and being a human. Yeah. Like I think that you need to, and a lot of people are just not aware. They're not. I mean, that behavior is unacceptable.
No, I think
Totally.
she knew. I think she knew she was
then
being
that's
like that.
so
And I think
cruel.
she,
Like,
I don't know.
It was a weird
was,
power
That
trip.
was a nasty, you know, spending so much time with you, Amanda. And I've heard, I think, this story and many others, and you've suffered so much heartbreak from friendships. And I've thought
you're
before.
so nice. I don't.
That's what I was gonna say. You're so loyal. You're so nice. You're like one of my best friends. You're one of my top 3. I always tell you that. And I've never seen that come out. There was one moment. There was a flicker where I was like, this is where the hurt comes out. When we were at the thing in the spring.
Oh,
someone
girl.
lit into you, and we went outside, and you turn on me, and you go, and then you, and I go, wait a second.
Is it the thing that I know about?
Yeah.
Oh,
But then I'm just like, but that's like, you are so like forgiving and like just so open still, and like the first person to make friends with everybody, put everyone at ease, ask them about themselves. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, is when like you're friends with someone or you're trying to create a relationship and you're doing all the work, and like and you're just like, I'm just amazed at, you have been through so many hurtful situations, and you were just like, you keep shining. So
I love that I'm crying.
No, I know.
It's hard to talk about those memories because it just like reopens the wound.
Yeah.
I'm someone with friendships where, and I'm trying more to be like that too, where you need that.
I know.
I know. I'm like, I gotcha. We need wine.
I know.
It's not too early. But I need that moment where it's like that, like, and I was, before doing this podcast, I was thinking, what a perfect group, because like Amanda and I have this amazing connection, but both of you two as well. Like Elana knows, I've told the story a million times before. When I was at Lone Wolf, when I started blogging, I started reaching out to random people, and some people brushed off, who is funny because some of them I've become friends with later on when I'm like somebody now. But like Elana, from day one, when I emailed her, was like a friend online who gave me advice. And I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I wanted to do something, and has been true. Like that level person who's just stayed consistently wonderful and building me up, not one of those people tearing me down and everything. So like, that's been amazing. And then with Vanessa on a trip recently, you shared like so much, like there was like that vulnerability moment, and I was just like, I know you on such a deeper level, and vulnerability to me too.
I felt vice versa. Yeah,
because
totally.
I'm always such an open book, and I am happy to be vulnerable. And when someone else can be vulnerable with you, it's just like, that brings you to that vulnerable without trying to get something from it. Because there's some people who
or drawing every ounce of the energy from your body.
Yes, there's those people, and that's different. And that's
And I think, well, Vanessa and Melissa, you guys were the first people who had interviewed me when I got back. I was like fresh off the boat. And
I remember Melissa telling me about you, and she's like, you got to check out her YouTube channel. And I was like, she's amazing, and we have to have her on. And like, it was just so beautiful how it worked. Yeah.
And I think, so something that I find interesting is the friendships, like we've all started talking about a little bit, like within the business, within the industry, you know, how social media has sort of affected friendships. Like something that I'm seeing as a trend. So for one, you know, as a personal, regular person who doesn't have a presence online, you might have like 400 friends on Facebook, but how many of those are like, are you actually ever going to call them up and be like, do you want to grab coffee? Right. Or you see the likes of a person who's got like 300,000 followers on Instagram, but then is so lonely and struggling, and it's like, it's this weird disconnect. You know, like, is that something that you find that you struggle with? Like, you know, right now, like okay, you've got followers, you've got this community. Do you still feel like lonely? Do you feel like there's like, does that have any impact, basically, social media? How has that impacted your friendships?
I think for me positively, but I've watched it be negative for other people, many others. And I was actually just remembering I had a really negative experience with a neighbor about a year ago, and I had to kind of cut that situation off. It was bad. But from that situation, I really learned, like, I kind of see friendship, and this includes with social media and like our industry friends, is like there's my inner circle, then there's a next ring of people, and then there's like those outer ones, and then I literally have a list in my mind of people who I call my red flag people who scare me, you know, and those are some of those.
I think I need more of a list like that.
Yeah,
I
and
don't think
in the past year, and it's been very healthy for me to just be like, you can still be friendly with them, but I don't trust those people.
Yeah, and that's a yucky feeling, you know,
it is,
because you're like, are we friends? Aren't we friends? Like, I don't like that feeling at all. I like to know straight up, like, I have your back, you have mine. I don't say anything bad about you. Like, I respect you. I support you. I can't stand the gray area. Like, I can't. I do not live in gray. I live in black and white. Yes, no, friends, not friends.
Yeah.
Not that we not. And if we're not friends, cool, whatever. I don't care. But like, don't be mean. Don't say mean things. You know, like, be cool.
Because there are those different types of friends, right? You do have, like you were saying, your best friends, you know, the people you're just going to like divulge everything and there's no judgment. It's like this awesome highway of sharing and back and forth. And then you have like these peripheral friends that, like, maybe it's like a mom at a school or someone you'll just work out with or have a coffee with. And I feel like you do need a little bit of everything to feel like this balance to a certain degree, because there's only so much of you to give. You know, you're not going to be like divulging everything all the time. But like, I do, you know, sometimes I joke about how I meet women in the park all the time, like when I'm with my kids or coffee shops, and I'll just like pick them up. I don't know, I love chatting with people. I do
pick up women.
I love that. I like that too.
Opposite. I'm just like, don't talk
I know,
to me.
I'm a bit like that too. I'm
I
getting
actually
better.
both though. It depends on my mood. I can be like,
and thankfully my husband is not an extrovert either. He's a bit more than I am, for sure. Because if he was an extrovert, it just wouldn't work. Because if he had wanted to go out all the time, we would, it just wouldn't work. And our kids aren't either. I mean, we're just homebodies. My whole family is just one big home, but that's why we drive each other crazy, because we're always home together. I'm just that person, like even the bus stop, and I love my bus stop moms. If anybody is listening right now, I love you guys dearly, but there's like, I'm just not that like small talk to me is like, I would rather pick off every single nail of my hand than have to deal with like
me too.
Small talk.
That's how I am. I cannot handle that.
I don't like small talk either, but I can go deep fast. Like, that's my thing.
I can if someone will meet me in the middle, but like the small talk with the people at school and everything, I also, because the industry friends, it's different because we have something to talk about. That's why I love my dog park people. We can talk about dogs.
That's why I need a dog.
My kids are so annoyed with me because I'll be in a store, and if I have to ask for help from someone, I'll actually leave the store and go somewhere else, because I can, not all the time,
I'm not that bad.
but on a rough day, if I've been indoors like on my own, like we're talking about how you get in your head, and I say I haven't been social very often, I literally will be like, I can't talk to like a random person, and that's the same thing. That's why I love like our conferences and stuff we go to, because there's a common topic we can talk about. And it's
I even
not
struggle
that
at conferences too, though.
Yeah.
Like I struggled this year at Mom too. Like I with conferences, I have to turn my switch on, and I felt at Mom too, and I could never do it.
You said that. Yeah, you're like, I can't get there.
And I've literally, like, to walk into a conference that we're all going to, Blissdom, that I love, and I'm so excited to go back to it. But the very first Blissdom I went to, like, for me to walk into a room where I know no one is like my worst thing in life. Like, again, I would rather pull off every single nail, but I do it because for work I have to do it, and I've made some amazing relationships, so I'm so thankful that I did it. But I remember one Blissdom, the last one I went to, where I knew every single person in the room and loved everybody, but it just, energy-wise, I just didn't have anything.
It can zap
it was
you.
the night, one of the night parties, and I literally walked in, looked around, and was just like, nope. Walked right back up and went up to my room. Like,
well, because you know what? The reality is there are shitty people, and there are energy suckers.
There's energy suckers.
Yeah. Energy suckers. And what was that? The book, The Celestine Prophecy. Have you ever read
Oh,
that?
yes.
It's
Gosh.
and you could read it in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh my God, ages ago. That book changed the way my brain was. I think my dad really noticed, like, that I gravitated, I'm going to say it, towards some damaged women. I think because my mom, you know, we have a very, very difficult relationship, and I always wanted to fix them. And like, and now you know, Joanna was mentioning at the top of the episode, like you're very, you know, this person is, you know, maybe not good for me and I'm going to cut them out. And I feel like that's something I'm learning now into my 30s. Like this person's not good for me. They fill me up? Do I fill them up? You know, I have a good friend. I picked her up at the park. Her name's Amanda. We both have Jax's sons. We're like, but you know, we'll get together and have a coffee and it's like the most easy flowing friendship and it's fun and she doesn't give a shit what I do for work and I don't care what she does. Great. But talking about the business side of things, I was at an event recently and somebody said to her, I was talking, it's actually at your event, at your show, would you imagine? So maybe if she's listening, she knows this is a direct message. But we were all standing together and you guys were off doing your thing. This is Vanessa and Melissa doing their show. And so we're talking and one of them's kind of in the industry. And so we were all chatting this and that. And I wasn't feeling very good. So I excused myself for a moment. And the girl looked at my friend Amanda and said, you're friends with her because of who she is, right? I know. And
Who
my
friend that? Seriously.
I know. Oh, I'll tell you later.
Okay,
I'm going to spill the tea, but not right now. But
my goodness.
But I was and my friend looked at her like, "What?" And she goes, "No, like she didn't." She goes, "First of all, we met in a park." And it's not like Amanda walks up to me handing me her business card.
Right.
Like we were chatting like moms do. And what she does is cool, but no, like...
But I think someone who thinks like that behaves like that.
Yeah.
That's not something you would normally think, right?
No, and that's the thing is that
even if you think it, you don't say it out loud.
Right.
Because there are some negative people like in this space who are really, you know, hunting the numbers. They want all the followers. They want to use you. Instead of uplifting, they're ruining it for everybody else. Like, what can they get?
I find myself lately backing off people who I find hold too much weight with the comments and the followers and like, you know, it's just...
What do you mean? Like, elaborate on that. Like in terms of like they place a lot of...
Be careful how I say
No, I know. But like in terms of like they really find their self-worth.
Yes, exactly.
In that.
And it's too... And I've actually had help like with my team more with that kind of handling that stuff so I can really focus on what I'm creating. And I don't know, there's been conversations sometimes where I actually felt grossed out after and stepped back for a whole week and re-examined how I do things online and how much where I'm getting my self-worth from. And it can be scary. It can be a scary place because I understand where those people are coming from. I've kind of fallen into that trap before, but sometimes I think especially because we are also in the industry, if we surround ourselves with people who are holding that much weight with that, it's toxic.
Yes.
I also think coming back to the comment you said about people who might have like 300,000 followers but are extremely lonely. I don't know about how you guys feel, but I imagine it's probably somewhat similar. But I feel like I'm the same person online as I am on my channel.
I'm going to tell you right now, you absolutely are. Because if there's anything I can say about myself is the second I meet a person, if they are different, I'm out.
Me too.
I don't have time for that crap.
Yeah.
I don't have time for the inauthentic way to live your life because it's too strategic. It's too gross. Like
it actually grosses me out. Like I'm like, you got to be who you are, you know? And I think a lot of people hide behind it and try to make it look perfect in this way and that way. And like, that doesn't benefit anybody. I don't even know why you would waste your time personally doing that, but
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And there are a lot of people who, place value and worth in the wrong things. And so I know in this episode I've talked a lot about difficult female friendships, but I do have a lot of good ones that bring me a lot of joy. And I have to say, like, when I met Joanna for the first time, we were like carpool work wives kind of thing. We even started a business. Like we did, you know, to put that much energy into another person who is doing something similar. And I think there's always going to be a part where you're like super pumped for someone and then maybe they do something that's bigger than you and you're like, for a minute you're like, oh, kind of wish I had that too. But then you're like, no, that is awesome because she is a good person. And I think there's so much to be said about uplifting everyone. Huge. What is that? There's that, I'm not even going to do it justice, but there's like a rising tide, blah, 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 like rises all ships.
I had a moment, actually, I'm going to share with you, I had a moment like that yesterday.
Is that
really?
You know?
Yeah,
I
had a full moment like that yesterday. Last night, I was right before I went to bed on social media. I saw that another mom duo who I totally love, their video was shared on a really big platform. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. And like Melissa and I have been working for 4 years. That platform's never shared our video. Yeah. So I could have easily been like, what? Yeah. Like, why haven't they shared my, you know what I mean? Although I probably haven't submitted to them, but anyway. But no, I was happy for them. And I wrote a comment to support them because that's how it should be.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
Absolutely.
I have a story like that actually.
Go for
Just
it.
came to mind. So, last nominations for Iris Awards came out, and
Iris Awards.
Iris Awards.
So for those that don't know,
Yes.
this is a mom conference that happens once a year, and then it's like an industry kind of like, let's nominate people, but it's been rather, it's like kind of incestual. Like it's been like,
Yes.
let's all nominate for the same 12 people. But yes,
And
carry on.
a whole bunch of my friends, including local friends, were nominated for awards, some in the categories that I would have gone for.
Mhm.
And I had this moment when I saw it and I wasn't nominated, and I was like, okay, breathe. And then I said, you have two ways to like handle this situation. Either you can mope around and be like really frustrated or disappointed, or you can rise above it. And I spent like a good hour with like 20 people that I knew that were nominated and sent congratulative messages of people all over the country, like Canada, US. I'm so excited for you. This is so awesome. And just doing that initially, as I started to do that process, I was like, had that little bit of like jealousy, but then the third comment in, I was like super pumped for everyone, and it was
Yeah.
gone. And I think that you need to be able, like, it's okay, it's normal, and it's
We're
human
human.
to
It's
feel
human to
it.
have moments of like,
feel that way.
Yeah.
be there. But that
Yeah.
should be
But
like,
then
you know
it's
what,
how
good for
you
them.
go
Yeah,
forward
you
with
need
that.
to make that
Yeah.
choice. And I
It's a
think that a lot of
choice.
like, that's why I think I like Rachel Hollis's stuff so much, is because that's her big thing, is this is like, you have a choice of your happiness and your, you know, like you
I
you
loved
could
her post
wallow,
today.
you could wallow.
I didn't see it
or-
yet. But it's
And
true.
then-
It's like those are natural feelings to feel in any relationship. It's the moment you ignore them
Yep.
is when the relationship will suffer, because
Yeah.
it's like you can't think that a perfect friendship is going to be emotion free. Like that's not
No.
anything of worth your
Yeah,
time.
and you might have negative thoughts here
Yeah.
and there, and you might
Yeah.
have moments of jealousy, and you got to deal with that.
And you know, it's funny, a few people have said to me since Amanda launched her podcast, so when are you going to launch your podcast? And I'm like, you know, I don't know if I'm ever going to have one. I have an idea, maybe in a couple years, but I'm happy right now, and I want her to shine. And we've talked about how that could be like another layer of expertise when we speak. And it's funny how people immediately are like, so when are you going to, you know, match that? And it's interesting, like the competition aspect and everything. But I think that's what my 30s have done for me. It's got me in this headspace where I'm like, I'm me, you're you, and
Yes.
we're good. You know,
Yeah.
anytime I start feeling like someone else is trying to, actually, I've had that before. It just dawned on me about like the copying thing and stuff. And you just have to really make a conscious choice and everything about how you're going to conduct yourself.
Yeah, it's you're only in control of your own actions. So and that's just always something that I value for myself, is I don't care how anyone else act. I mean, I do obviously care how other people act, but I'm only in control of how I respond to that action, or how, you know, and that's just, I've always been more of a giver than a taker when it comes to work. And, you know, going back to how we met and things like that, like why wouldn't I have given you it? But like, that's just how I think.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm in a little bit of a different situation business wise than you guys are. So I don't necessarily go through everything that you guys do. But I mean, still in my own industry, there's competition everywhere. And,
But also you're managing other people, and you're,
which
you know,
is its own beast.
oh girl, yeah,
And
it's
she's
hard.
an online personality. You've got a lot of
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, that definitely, having that team that you have to manage and different personalities, and that's its own thing. And I mean, coming back to the friendship thing, that's something that as a business owner that I don't know if you guys have experience or will experience, but it's hard to be the boss. And I'm saying that in air quotes, because I still don't think of myself as the boss, but essentially I guess I am, because you do make friends with those that are in your team. And I've had individuals leave the company, and not in a bad way, just, you know, just not left and everything's amicable, but then unfriend me on Facebook, and it's like, you know, it's like, it's hard. And I'm just like, so I would say to my husband, like, they unfriended me. He's like, you weren't their friend, you were their boss. I'm like, but we were kind of friends. Like, you know, so it's sometimes, I always say I have someone that we all know that is a very mutual person that I very rarely speak to, but when we do connect, we're always on the same page, because I feel like we go through similar things. And I always take little tidbits of what she says to me, and she goes through the same thing. And she's like, you can be friendly, but you can't be friends with those that are on your team. And I have team members that I consider my friends. If they're listening, you guys know who you are. But it's hard. Like,
It is hard.
It is hard. It's because it's a different layer. And it's like, I often have to think, okay, I'm their boss. They don't maybe look at me as their friend, whereas I look at them as friends, but they probably don't think of me as a friend. They think of me more as a boss. So,
And sometimes we look to our friends to offer that therapeutic, not sometimes, a lot of the time. Like if I'm having a low moment and I feel like I'm going to just close up shop, I'm often like, who should I call? I'm going to call Joanna. Okay,
Yeah.
Joanna, I'm about to quit it all. Like,
I'm
and
about
she,
to press delete. Should I stop?
she's usually like, are you PMSing? Yes.
It's always that time
Do not
for
make
me.
decisions,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, during this
Stay
10-day
away in that
period.
week,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you like talk you off the ledge, and that's a really good place. But I do think that there's a point, you know, we've been touching on like toxic friendships and that where maybe someone is doing that too much and you're just like this weird therapy session. Yeah. And it's like a little bit of like a manipulative.
Yeah, there has to be a give and take. But if someone's like taking,
Yeah.
you have to be like, no. Like, this is not how it works too. And
Those are just
and then you start to,
exhausting friendships,
then you have to
the
have
one
questions
that you
like, conversations like, let me tell you about a good therapist I have because
You
this is
do.
real good.
You have to just seek medical attention.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like, and
have.
sometimes
I'm out.
those
even
are the
like,
red flag friends.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Those
and
are
to
those
recognize
people
it
that I
within
don't
yourself. Like right now I'm feeling like there's some stuff going on in my personal life that I'm like, I don't know that I need to burden the people that I care about with this because it's stuff from my past. It's stuff, whatever. And I'm like, no, I need like a professional who's going to help me work through this and coach me through it. And you can surface talk about those deep things with close friends, but it's not like you don't always need to dump on your friends. I was reading something about how talking about women as they age, and they were saying that female friendships might actually be the key to happiness in older women, and just how you nurture those friendships and actually might even help us live longer.
Yes, I read that
I've
about
heard
living
that.
longer. If it's a friend you can ask to borrow money, there's like criteria for it. They know like your deepest, darkest secrets. That statistically you have a better chance of living longer.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like how
It
do
makes sense though, because it creates happiness, which creates euphoric feelings, which is healthy within your body, right?
And if you think too, like the way friendships and female friendships has evolved over time, like I was reading this article where it was saying, years ago when marriages were more like this business transaction, there wasn't a lot of that emotional connection with your husband. And so your female friends were the ones who filled that gap, who, nurtured you. And they say like, women go through life and we share so much with other women that we're often like, if you think about it visually, if you're a visual person, like you're face to face with a woman, where men often stand like shoulder to shoulder. Now this is very like gender stereotyping, so it's not for everybody, but like even in restaurants, if you sit down, I wouldn't normally like just sit beside my friend. I want to look into your face and chat, where men might just like,
So you can just sit at a bar next to each other and drink and be
But bringing it back a little bit, and this is because we all have daughters that are, around the same age. I really put stock into, we're talking about female friendship. I really put stock into, I had a lot of great guy friends growing up. Really good. One of my best friends was a guy. And I can honestly say there was no, they always say boys can't be friends with girls because they want something else. Like I can honestly say it was more of a brother or sister relationship. There really wasn't anything romantic or sexual there. And my daughter is building a friendship with a boy that lives on our street, and me and his mom are friends, and it's very platonic. I mean, she's 10 years old.
it's good to see,
but
though.
it starts young.
they do, yeah.
But honestly, I know she has a little crush on someone and he has a little crush on someone, and it's not each other. And I think it's really important for girls to be friends with boys at a young age. And in saying that, the reason why I say that is because now, obviously, the guy friends that I was friends with, I'm really no longer friends because now I have my husband, and I do think that would be kind of weird. Yeah. But they really taught me how I should be treated as a woman, because they were so close to me, where they would, if I was going out with someone that they didn't, I remember actually one of my very close guy friends at the time sitting me down saying like, why are you going out with this guy? He's a loser. He treats you like shit. Like, what are you doing? And so I think we need to put stock on that with and even our boys. Like I have a son. It's important that he's friends with girls as well.
My son has play dates with girls.
Yeah, my son's best friend is a girl, and there's those two, and she's like the biggest gamer, and it's like you said, like just total brother sister type too. But I was the same thing. Like with my guy friends growing up, it was really good for me, and it's brought out some different. I think that and having older brothers, it's like brought out this different side of me that maybe wouldn't be there if I didn't have all that male influence. But I think it's been also healthy for my marriage, because I can really, I find I can chill out and just kind of do the friendship thing too, not just the romance thing. And
I think for me too, like my husband entered into a relationship with female friends who are also now married, and like we're all friends, and so he totally had female friends. I've had guy friends, but I kind of ended up dating them all.
I was gonna say
so they didn't always stay
I have a hard time with that line.
Yeah,
I'm always
think
like,
I cross the
As
line.
an adult, I wouldn't have guy friends.
why
Like,
am I not
have-
surprised by this, Vanessa? The two of us.
I've had like work guy friendships, like when I was a designer, but I would never really hang out with them outside of work.
No,
and
me neither.
I think the same thing with my husband. I think I'm like you, Elana. I think, and you guys, like I think it's a fine line when you're married, and you know.
I think they have to be married and you're mutual friends.
Yeah, and you gotta all have to hang out together.
Yeah,
like you hang out with another couple.
Yeah, like my husband, if he was like, I'm going to hang out with this other woman, I'd be like, no, you're not.
I feel like that's like a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
that's another one.
I don't know that I'd be comfortable if my husband had
A BFF?
a BFF that was a girl.
No, I wouldn't either.
I completely trust my husband 100%.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. But
I
no.
just would, and I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
And he probably wouldn't either. No, me neither. I'd be like, no, you're my BFF.
But I do think at a younger age, I think it's
Yes.
important to nurture those relationships too, because I feel like they taught me a lot of how I should be treated as a woman because of how they treated me or told me I should be treated.
Yes, that's important.
You know?
True,
Well, especially like, and this is something that probably none of us can really comment on because we all have siblings and we all have like multiple children. But you know, that dynamic of like, if you didn't have a brother or a sister at home and you don't really know how to like interact with the opposite gender, like those friendships are essential.
100%.
Like,
I didn't have brothers, so that was my
right.
Yeah.
There, see, I had a brother, so we were good, but I didn't have like a sister for a long time. So to have that, like build that female kind of dynamic, that was more what I sought out when I was out. Cause I was always playing with my brother all day. Like I was good. So I wanted the girl to play house with and play Barbies and all those things, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I was reading this quote and they were talking about whether female friendships are trendy. And I was like, that's weird.
Trendy.
Yeah. I was like,
It's trendy now.
they're like trying to basically monetize. There's been a couple books released about like the F word and like female friends and trying to nurture that. But do you guys follow like Busy Phillips?
Yes, I do.
I do. I like her.
Freaking love
She's
Busy
funny.
Phillips. But Michelle Williams and Busy Phillips were saying that friendship love is real and they wish it upon everyone everywhere.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
real.
It's totally real.
Yeah.
It's so real.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's like if I don't get an opportunity to like plug into my friends, I'm just like, I need that.
Crazy.
I don't get to converse with my spouse like I do with my girlfriends. It's like this different
Even
connection.
just that one quick text randomly, like I sent you on the weekend with that
Yeah.
short little vent, like just gotta say this, just gotta get off my chest about this
Yeah.
one thing, and then I'm good. And just someone acknowledge, I understand, or I feel that too, and you're like, okay, and now I can let that go.
Yeah.
And it's an important dynamic, it really is.
Absolutely.
And going to friendship love, I don't know if you guys feel like this, but with my like the women that I grew up with as children, with that deep love, like I automatically love their kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like even if one of their kids is being the biggest turd,
Yes.
which it happens often, they all are sometimes. Like I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I find with my best friends, I'll literally pick up their kids and cuddle with them on the couch. And same with Mike too. He'll actually cuddle with their kids, and it's just totally different. It's totally different.
And I often find I'll say like I do fall in love with my friends because I'll meet a person, a woman in a restaurant or whatever, and I'm like, we're gonna be friends and like let's exchange numbers. And then as I get to know them, I'm like, is she not like the most beautiful woman you've ever seen? And I find people get more beautiful as I know them.
Yeah.
Like you can find beauty in anybody.
Oh,
Anybody.
yeah.
Like when you know them and you know their insides out, right?
Yeah.
And I know we've been chatting for a while, but I did want to just touch on a little bit of like the technology aspect of how we maintain friendships. Like one of my best friends that I met in Malaysia, we both had our boys at the same time. Like she lives in the UK, and it's like, how do you nurture those friendships? Like, do you have friends that live far, or is everyone pretty close?
I have a friend. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm surprised that's the first time that's happened.
Yeah.
So I have a group of friends. We met on Babysitter actually because all of our oldest are the same age. Ooh, sorry. So we met on Baby, and we then this is the group of 7 of us, and we then moved to now we have a Facebook group, and so we're Canada and the U.S. So we're all, but they're like I probably tell them more, and maybe it's because I can type it out.
Oh.
I find sometimes when you can write things down, you kind of talk more than maybe over the phone or in person. Like for instance, I went through, infertility and stuff, and they were there for me probably more than anybody I don't want to say in real life because they are my real life friends, but because they're like I call them my cyber friends, but they're like my best friends. Like we've been friends now for over, our oldest are going to be 11. And we've gone through divorce together and parents getting sick and kids being, assholes and, all that stuff together and going through different, like now our daughters are going through, you know, I shouldn't say this because maybe they're listening, but, you know, getting their womanly things.
Yeah.
So we're all like, okay, so what did you do? And what do we do when this happens? So it's like it's like all online.
And that's so
and we've
good
only
to have
actually
people to
ever
talk
met
to
each
about.
other in person once.
Wow.
In 11 years, but they're like, I would
They're your
tell
people.
them
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
and I know they would tell me anything.
That's the beauty of social media, I think.
Yeah.
That's
It's weird.
Yeah.
One of my top 3 friends, one of those friends that I grew up with and my best friend, she moved from our town to 2 hours away about 3 or 4 years ago. And I find Insta stories helpful. So we can kind of see what each other is doing, and then we'll message each other. And that just kind of keeps us on top of like what's just going on. I love Insta stories. That's my go-to with the DMs there and everything. And then we make a point now to like go and visit each other for a whole day with the family and everything.
Yeah.
But
And I think it's also just like appreciating how, you know, technology, Facebook, Messenger, all these things, how it will shape and change the relationship. But I also, you know, as much as, you know, it might change it where you think the friendship is like, like you said, I haven't seen these people in 10 years. Like I've met them once.
Met them once in person.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it can kind of trick you into thinking that like, oh yeah, I've seen this person. I know everything that's going on. But then also it sort of bridges this gap of like, you don't need to be neighbors. You don't need to like, you know, because if you think, sometimes I think about like,
and I do my neighbors.
well, and you know what?
I've talked to my
Isn't
neighbors
it a
around.
blessing? Can you imagine just for a moment, like living in a time where your people were basically who lived in your neighborhood?
Yes, that was community.
That was it. You did not get to pick.
I don't
Isn't
think
it a bad
I
thing?
I don't think I would have loved that though.
that was
would
my
be
childhood
really
though.
nervous.
That was why I had so many
Right.
guy friends, because they were who were there.
They li-
and we
yeah.
all rode our bikes and
It's
played
true.
outside
It's
and
true.
played hide
When
and
you were
seek
young.
until it was like really dark out.
Yeah.
And then we go home.
So it's interesting, like,
Google Hangouts, like my
No.
daughter has now with her friends. Like,
No.
it's
You
Or
great.
should do that.
Fortnite,
That's what
like
they do.
my son and
Skype
all his
Google
friends,
Hangouts.
Fortnite.
That's how they talk.
Yeah.
oh my
Wow.
God.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Or yeah,
At least
go
no one's
home.
like, you know, basically taking over the phone line. It'd be like on that phone and
My
then
kids
somebody pick up.
FaceTime. Like my
They
daughter
FaceTime
FaceTimes with her
her
friend,
friends,
and they'll
yeah,
sit
from the
there
iPads.
4 hours talking about. I'm like, "What you guys talking about?" She's like, "Nothing."
I know.
And like for
They
an
don't
hour,
really
you
talk.
sat in your bed.
But that's what we did as
They just
kids.
look at each
That's
other
what we
like,
did.
have a
We'd sit on the
Barbie or
phone.
whatever. I'm like, "What are you doing?" But it's so cute.
It
I'm
is
like,
so cute.
"Communicate, go away." Like that's amazing. But
I like it though, even the friends that live close, so you can send a quick text. And I don't know if you guys are the same, but if you cold call me, I will like, does anyone actually
Oh.
phone you now? Like
more texting.
texting.
Yeah.
I have a
Texting.
friend who will randomly
Unless
call
I'm-
me sometimes, and I'm like,
What's
What
happening?
does she think I'm doing? Which is horrible to say, but it's
Yeah.
how times have changed.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would say
It's
like the 4 girls who I'm super tight with, we call each other one of my friends every day.
Yes,
for
and
like a
it's
good
those
20
friends,
minutes
yeah.
too. And sometimes,
Wow.
but
Every
we're
day.
the kind of call where if something happens within 30 seconds, I'm like, gotta go call you back. Like it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
there's the manners are kind of.
And if you don't call back,
it's
not a big
fine.
Deal.
But
Yeah,
it's like
I couldn't talk on the phone that much. That's where my introverted
drive a
side
lot, though.
says I'm too
That's
tired.
true.
That's like too much energy to sit on the phone. But
Right.
then you could go for lunch with me, and I'll be there for 3 hours talking.
yeah.
Right.
But
But
for
then
me,
when-
I find driving, I catch up on a lot of my girlfriend calls. I call everybody while I'm driving.
Or if I'm cooking, if
Smart.
I'm like preparing a meal, that's when I pick up the phone. 'Cause
See,
then
my kids
I'm
interrupt
not-
too much. It's like they know I'm on the phone.
It's like a
and then
heat-seeking missile.
All the meltdowns happen, so I've stopped trying to
That
do.
happens
Even
too
my
as
parents
we get
respect
older.
it. I feel like it will. It will come back.
Cold calling is hard.
Yes.
I have to say though, I'm a very spontaneous person, and I really find when I find people that I like, if we're gonna be friends, you got to be able to make plans the next 2 hours. Sometimes, like I want to go for coffee, like right now.
I agree.
Like I think I've done that to her. I'm gonna be driving through Milton in an hour. Are you
Come
around? And you're
over.
like, come. Now I don't
See,
always
I'm not.
expect.
I'm so like that. I couldn't do that. I love you to death. But I'd be like,
But see, I
no,
wouldn't-
I need preparation.
Yeah.
But
Like,
you know,
mentally,
But it's
not-
the close.
yes,
It's
yes.
the closest
Yeah.
friends. Because if my house looks like a bomb went off, I don't care if Amanda sees
Oh,
it.
yeah. No,
that's a
no,
close friend. You
Yeah,
open the
yeah,
door
yeah.
with your like hair in a top
It's more if I
knot,
have to
and
actually
like
leave my home. I'm like, no. I
Yeah.
need time.
You
to
know
prep
you've hit that
mentally for
next
that.
level of friendship when you can share a hotel room with them and talk about bowel movements. That's
Yes.
like my rule. I always say that. If you can talk, like I have to go to the bathroom,
Yes.
I'll be in the room for like 20 minutes. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
that is
take
the
your
that
time.
is
I
like
think
the
that with a lot of
ultimate.
people. I don't know what that says about me.
But yeah, it's kind of amazing though how, you know, coming back to that initial thing that I read about, like, you know, your friends are going to, what is it? You want somebody to talk to, somebody to depend on, and somebody to enjoy your time with. And it's like, if you can fill those voids, like even just how enjoyable this conversation is. We've talked about some pain. We've talked about some joys. We've talked about like, even just what we like about each other. Like, to me, that is the beauty of friendship, when you can uplift other women and support them. But also if you notice a toxic person that you're just like, that is not good for me, and therefore I'm not good for you, and we're just going to not do this and be okay okay with it. And even if like, have you ever rekindled something?
Yes.
With like, I read something, and tell me if you agree with this kind of thought. So Carol Topolowski, who's a psychologist and author, she goes, having an old friend from childhood. So all of you have this. There's something that's the safety of the familiar is very compelling, because this person holds a significant part of your history in this relationship, right? And that if you were to lose that friend, there is a mourning that some people just don't want to experience, because it's also like your history that is coming to an
100%.
end.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to rekindle where it just didn't really work out? Like,
Not where it didn't. Like, I've had a couple falling outs with my good friends, but never for too long, and never. The only one. No, I've never rekindled. I'm very much like a relationship when I'm over you.
It's done.
Or when something like that's happened, I'm done.
I haven't had to rekindle. Like I said, the friends that I keep are like, if I keep you as a friend, you like, and we've had falling outs too, but nothing.
Yeah,
I've never had to. I've never been in that situation where I've had to.
I had a massive falling out with one of my best friends, like screaming, involved the husbands, like we just let it all out, and it just came to a head. Like I think we were at a point in our lives where our paths were kind of like separating, and we couldn't agree with where we were going, and we had a massive falling out, and we rekindled after about a year and a half. And best of friends again. But
that's
like we
amazing.
needed that time,
Probably
and it's never been an issue, that falling out. It's almost like it cleared the air.
Yeah.
I find I tried to rekindle with a friend from college, because I moved back to Ontario after many, many years away, and we got together, and it was nice. Like, it was a sweet little, like, you pulled out a photo book and you were like, that was so fun. And that girl was so, like, that night was awesome. And I had this great moment. But there was also an awareness that, like, that friendship held a time and place, and it is no longer that time, and we are not in a similar stage of life. Like, Elana, you mentioned that friend where she didn't have kids and you did, and that's the case. I had friends, I had babies before a lot of my friends, and so there's that separation. But also, I think I'm a very like forward thinking person, so I'm like, I'm not that person that I was when you knew me 15 years ago. And I have no intention to go back there. And I think about different things. And I don't want to sit here and always talk about the past. I want to like talk about the future and like be, I don't know, very idea driven. And so I find sometimes I'm like, I value it, I respect it, but I'm going to close that chapter.
For either rekindling or trying out a new friendship, for me, the biggest killer for me is if I find there's too much of me giving. Say you're a quiet person, or you don't ask anything about me, or you're kind of bored with the friendship. Like, there's just not that.
Or they always have a drama.
Oh,
those friendships where it's like every week something crazy, and you're like, this
and there was a victim.
Happened to one person.
Someone can have drama, but if they're always the victim, I can't.
I was gonna say, going back to friendships too, like I don't know, I guess I have like a good dozen friends, females, who I've worked with, like in my career, who live in Toronto, who I'm friends with on Facebook, and at certain pockets of times in my life, we were really close because of work. Like, we traveled, like went to the Cannes Film Festival and like did crazy things together. And then I got married and had kids and moved out of the city. But like, if they were to call me and say, oh, I'm in town, do you want to go for coffee? I'd be like 100%, and we'd have the best time, and it'd be great. And I wouldn't say they ended or I had to rekindle them. They just pick up. It was a time and a place, right? Yeah. And those are great friendships too, because even on my birthday this year, one of my friends who I worked in ad sales with for like 5 years sent me the sweetest birthday message ever, saying like, I want you to know I watch all the stuff you're doing, and like, I'm so proud of you, and like, let's get together next time you're in Toronto. And like, she's the kind of person who I would say the same as her, so proud of her, and like, such a lovely human. And that's so nice when you have those moments again of it's not even reigniting, because it's still there, it's just not happening in the moment, you know?
Exactly, because it's like, it's just either proximity is too hard, or you're just in such different phases. But it's not like there's any bad blood.
There's nothing bad. Like, I give references to people, like vice versa. I'd talk them, I'd talk so well about them. It's just a different time and place in your life.
Yeah. Like, if they cold called me, I'd be stressed, but then I would sit down and I would just be like, let's talk for 20 minutes. This is awesome. Like, exactly. And I think it's so important to have all those different dynamics. And I think that's what makes it fun and gives you those stories. And I have enjoyed all of these stories, and we have chatted. I know. We just need like a big little hug, going on in the middle. But I thank all of you for being here, and this was really exciting to record, and I hope for those of you listening that you enjoyed this, and you could tell who was who, because we all have very different voices, or you can watch the video, because this is coming out on Thursday. And then I think either tomorrow, Friday, or next week, I'm going to be putting the video out so you can find it on my channel. Links are going to be in the show notes. But thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. So
This
fun.
was so fun. And until next time, guys, be sure to follow along The Sandwich wherever you listen to podcasts, and I'll catch you in the next one.